What's up, everybody? Welcome to episode 72 of the Overview. I'm ChanManV, and joining me today is ZP in his hotel. I guess that's right. Not at Gil's place.
It is a hotel.
Okay.
No, I am not at Gil's place. I am in a hotel. It is a very nice extended stay hotel, but a hotel nonetheless. Thus, the part where I'm using a makeshift laptop webcam.
Yes,
the world we live in.
Well, better that cam than the Doomfist that we've grown to represent you with. So
I don't know. Doomfist is my life goals, man. He's ripped.
Oh my gosh. I want to welcome back Flame to the show. It's been a while, man. I was like,
a very long
holy
while.
shit. I was like looking and I'm like, oh my God, I think it's been like 8 episodes since we've had Flame on here.
I think 5 of them were World Cup weeks though.
Yeah. You were busy.
I was all over, yeah.
Busy in the circuit. So good stuff, man. Great to have you back. And those of you wondering where Ben is, he had to bail last minute because of work. Freaking RL sucks, rip. But yeah, hopefully he'll be back next week. We must continue without him. Lots of stuff. Once again, this week we've got lots of changes with the games. We've got interviews with devs that happened at GamesCom, as well as a bunch of player and team news, Overwatch League. Lots of speculations that we can make this week, which is going to be a lot of fun. And then we've got Overwatch Contender Season 1 in full swing, as well as Apex Season 4. So lots of matches also to talk about. And if you guys have any questions for Q&A, go ahead and email those to theoverview@chanmanv.tv, and we'll get to them either this week or next week. If not, just chill out in Twitch chat. We'll probably ask for some questions at the end, too, if we have any time. But, okay, well, why don't we talk about the games or some of the game news that's happened since they've been, or everybody's been at GamesCon, obviously the announcements and all the good stuff. First thing being Junkertown, the new map. So everybody's getting a chance to play it, at GamesCom. And, we got a chance to see the video of it, which was, I have to say, that video was badass, man. That whole Thunderdome, Mad Max feeling. I mean, that was really, really cool. But first impressions of Junkertown so far, ZP.
I'm just happy to see another Escort map be added to the game.
Right?
Escort is, I think Escort has been relatively diverse when you look at maps like Gibraltar and Dorado in terms of just the huge variation strategy you see going from point A to the final point. And anytime you're saying you're adding a new Escort map where you have some of the cool terrain features that Junkertown has, I think it's pretty exciting. We'll see how it actually plays. Obviously, opinions can change once you put it in the hands of competitive players, but I mean, overall, positive stuff.
Yeah, loving the aesthetics too, man. Definitely the whole, like let's take back the world or whatever. They've got that whole thing going for them. But Flame, what do you think, man? So far from what you've seen,
I mean, it feels very Borderlands.
Yeah, totally Borderlands.
Like that,
right?
But like opening scene where you're coming in on the bus with Claptrap, I thought that's exactly where I thought I was.
Totally, man.
When I was watching the streams, but it's a nice map. I mean, the layout looks good. The points look very diverse and like unique, and that's, I think, important.
How would you compare it? Like, which map do you think it's the most similar to, or maybe some attributes of a couple of them?
I think it's too early to tell. I think you have to actually play on it to get an actual feel, because there's times where you might visually say it looks like X, but it actually plays like Y. We'll know more when it actually hits PTR and people get a chance to play on it in terms of how it feels. I would say I would hope that's more like Gibraltar and Dorado and less like Route 66. I mean, 66 is okay, but it isn't. 66 hasn't felt quite as iconic as the other 2 main Escort maps so far, I would argue.
It's definitely more, I don't know what the word is. Like the first point feels very Route 66, but then the second point feels very Kings Row. And then third point is like very, I don't know what the word is. It's like, I don't even know what to compare it to. It would be like the first point maybe of Dorado or something, like where all it is just very open and you can go wherever you want. That last point, I think, is probably the one that's going to be played the most. Like that'll be like the shock, where people aren't really sure what they should be running because there's so much to do.
Mm-hmm. Okay, well, those are definitely it sounds like a hybrid, obviously, of a lot of the other maps, and hopefully the best of the other maps. But one of the things that was discussed, and we're about to talk about some of the Q&A too, but might as well bring it up, between Siegel and Scott Mercer, was that we have 16 maps now. Like Junkertown's going to be number 16, and the question of whether the whole voting system, or maybe rotation, just rotating some of the maps out, should be considered at this point. And Scott made it sound like they haven't really got to that point yet, or they don't feel like they've reached the point where they have too many maps and they need to start doing that. What do you guys think? You think that 16 is too many for the players as well as just even people on ladder?
Well, what I've always said there, I would like to see things swap on sort of a month-to-month basis where you announce that. So to set this up, Blizzard tournaments are licensed to begin with, and most of the tournaments you're getting right now are directly from Blizzard. But let's say that you're in a situation where you also have third-party tournaments. It'd be nice if there was sort of an announcement saying that, say in April and May, here's going to be the map pool, and it's a map pool of like 2 to 3 per game type. I think that would be super reasonable and would give players something to prep for, where you know that during these 2 months, you will only be playing on these maps for any tournament. Mm-hmm. And then you get the next map list for the months after, maybe a month or so in advance. So when you have to start prepping and mixing that in. Like, I think that'd be reasonable.
Yeah, but overall, you think 16 is too much right now? I know
heavy a map.
Yeah, I know having set list would be fun and would be mixing it up, but do you think that 16 just generally is too much?
In Flame?
I don't know. I don't think it's too much. I think my biggest gripe with the current iteration of the game is that you have no say in what you do play. And it's not even so much about competitive. It's more I think that there have to be a lot more updates to the custom game stuff, because I do think that community servers should exist where you can just kind of pick your own maps to play, even if you're in the mood for it.
Yeah.
Because there is a massive feeling of helplessness when you do queue with your friends, even in quick play, where you're not sure what you're going to get. And if you're going to queue in with your friends, right, maybe you're just taking a chill night with a buddy, let's just play a few games. But if you wind up getting Anubis or Hanamura with a bunch of people who aren't really taking the game seriously, it definitely impacts your enjoyment level. And I think that's something that needs to be addressed more so than limiting the maps or whatever.
So you're coming at this from the other angle then. I was thinking about the pro player setup, but if you're talking just competitive play then, Flame, I think one thing you're sort of leaning towards, which I've always thought would be healthy for the game, just because it also gives feedback on what maps people really dislike, right? As a metric, is why not have a map veto system for competitive, where now that you have 16 maps, wouldn't it be reasonable to let you veto, say, 3 to 4 maps?
Yeah, for sure. But that's one of those things that is it going to happen? It's definitely something that everyone wants.
Eventually it will happen.
It's something that everyone wants. It's just a matter of when.
I just think for that, it would be very good feedback, because at the end of the day, what you want people to have in a game like Overwatch is fun, right? And there is the idea where you want every game mode to be entertaining and good. But, if we ever did, say, get a veto system in Overwatch and old biases came up where suddenly you had a significant portion of the player base, say, vetoing Assault or vetoing Control, then that sort of data you can look at and go, maybe we should take a look at this even more, because you have a disproportionate amount of people vetoing. I just think vetoes are a really good form of feedback.
Yeah, especially when a brand new map comes out. There's nothing more frustrating than wanting to play the new map in the ladder environment, and you just have to wait. Literally, there was I forget which map it was. It was one of the new ones at the time. I forget it was Route 66 or whatever it was. It literally took me 30 games before I finally played it. And it's just a killer. Because you might not have enough people to go into a custom game and find it. A lot of times, at least in the PTR, they have it, as a specific game, so you can get to play it over and over in PTR, but not in the production environment. You know what I mean? So that can be tough.
I might be crazy, but I'm pretty sure that when new maps came out, they did have a period, at least in quick play, where they did bias the matchmaker to bring up the new map more often.
Okay, in quick play, sure, but not in competitive though. They definitely didn't do that. But anyways, so new escort, we've been waiting for it, because when they come out with new maps, they come out, it's in order of the different types of maps. So this was an escort, or the escort's turn, and it's going to be a lot of fun, given that the escort maps are the ones that most pro players enjoy playing the most, or think it sets up to be the most entertaining games. The next bit of news I think that we should talk about is Jeff Goodman had an interesting post pertaining to D.Va a day ago, and talking about just possible changes to D.Va. And obviously that generated a lot of discussion because of the possible changes to D.Va. So let me bring it up real quick. So the things that he's talking about are basically changing defense matrix, of course. So I don't think anybody is upset about any changes to Matrix. So energy drain increased by 2x, and obviously means that ability would be reduced by 50%. But then the fusion cannon would get upgrades, so you can fire it while flying, for one thing, and then there'd be a brand new ability called micro missiles, which obviously would be Diva's always been missing ability, right? So it'd be that extra ability, and then it's going to be more of a DPS type of thing. So overall, I think this makes her more offensive than just the kind of bodyguard defense blocking everything that she's been lately. You guys like this change? I mean, I think any change here is good, but do you like this particular one?
So I think the interesting thing here is that the evolution of Diva play over time, particularly what you've seen from Diva players in the last 4 months or so, the big change is that people used to use Diva more like a sledgehammer and use her for offense, diving in on people, and less for protection. Mm-hmm. What you've seen people shift to in recent times is that they've shifted her much more to protection, where you use her to mitigate DPS heroes from really being able to do exactly what they want. Use it to stymie tracers, 76s, McCree's, like you name it, Diva is blocking it. Now it feels like the changes are really pushing her back towards the offensive end, where the era of a Diva holding back for the most part might go away to some extent. I mean, we'll see. It depends on how it works out, but it feels like they're at least in theory trying to encourage her to be far more aggressive than she's sometimes getting played right now.
Blame?
Yeah, her damage output might be like ridiculous now, because I'm pretty sure you can just like hold mouse 1 forever and there's really no downside to it, right? Other than like feeding a meal, I guess.
That's true. That's great.
So like I think the hero might need like a reload or something at that point, but other than that, I mean, it's cool to have missiles. The missiles definitely change the way other heroes are balanced, right? Because now you have more reason to run Zarya. If like it's less less easy to have defense matrix up to like eat a graviton or something, and there's obviously like you can now eat the missiles with your bubbles and stuff. And Tracer probably has to play. I mean, depending on the damage, I would assume Tracer has to play more passive a little bit with Diva, because like the defense matrix up less, but now Diva has burst, and Diva never really had burst. So giving a hero with like so much health and damage output and mobility and survivability and damage just sounds crazy at the end of the day.
Diva just, man, when Diva gets buffed, I mean, she's taking a nerf here. It's like one nerf, but like a double buff situation. When she gets
it's like
buffed,
it's like
a super buff.
Just being able to shoot while flying is a massive buff, I think.
I know, not to mention another ability.
What's going to really help her there is that, and this is sort of, I think it's a case where it wasn't really intended to nerf this, but it also makes it so there's another in-your-face counter to Pharah's, right? Where right now, when you're up against an enemy Pharah, your options effectively are: do you run a 76, a McCree, or an other Pharah, or you just try to ignore the Pharah and win the ground war. Yeah. You've had Diva's pressure Pharah a little bit now, but the ability for Diva to pressure a Pharah post-patch is going to be way, way better.
Yeah, and burst mercy and stuff. Yeah, for sure.
Is that a bad thing though?
I mean, not at all.
Yeah,
no, it's not bad.
There's like few things right now more annoying than like a Pharah sitting in the skybox spamming 140 damage rockets or whatever at you.
Right. Okay, well, anyways, hopefully this makes it to the PTR. A lot of times these posts by Jeff Goodman do make it to the PTR, so I would expect that to be coming out pretty soon. Can't wait to check that out. On top of just this, I guess this obviously post by Jeff Goodman, we've actually had a Q&A today at Gamescom with Seagull, and Scott Mercer joined Seagull on one of the Blizzard streams, and he was there for a while, man. I mean, I think he was just answering questions for, I don't know what it was, an hour and a half or something like that. So just getting peppered by a bunch of questions, and he answered a good amount of things. I mean, some of the things obviously he couldn't answer because of Season 6, but any specific highlights you guys maybe pulled from the Q&A that you might want to mention right now?
Just a shout out to Scott Mercer for whoops.
Yeah.
Sorry, I was getting an echo because I turned on the stream and then was hearing. I was very confused. Anyways, shout out to Scott Mercer, man, for working Gamescom 2 years in a row. If you're working that as a dev, that is a rough show to work. You're in interviews all day long on top of long travel. So, I mean, his dedication to the game is amazing. So big props to Scott Mercer for making it out there.
Okay.
I know. I just saw him too. I think he was in Cali.
Yeah.
So, like,
he was
definitely in Santa Monica, and like he's everywhere. He was at MLG Vegas. He just loves esports, and I think that's like really cool. And I think that's why he stayed for so long. He was actually like there for so long that he started to get like visibly, I don't want to say tired, but like you could hear in his voice that he hadn't drank water in like an hour and really needed it, to the point where like chat literally was screaming, "Someone give this man water!" and then they finally brought him water, and he was like, "Thank you, chat."
Re-energized there, yeah. It's hard, man. It's hard to talk for so long. I mean, you guys know, can't talk without water for that long.
For sure.
So I think one of the biggest topics that was brought up was matchmaking, right? And just what kind of changes. That's a big, I think, point of conversation right now, just in the community, is that, it's matchmaking. It's always a point of conversation. So I think some of the things I brought up were just like role selection, playing maybe some kind of factor in the matchmaking, so that you don't have like 3 Genji players playing at the same time, or 3 Mercy player mains or things like that. And he didn't really say anything definitively there, but he definitely said that there are some big changes coming to matchmaking in season 6, but didn't say much.
I would say, reading in between the lines, the biggest thing that was in there, and it was somewhat stated, but I think it would work into all the other factors, like perhaps trying to prevent one tricks from stacking up on a team and then leading to a situation where you have 2 Mercy mains, and then the one Mercy main goes DPS and can't play DPS. In avoiding those situations, just sounds like the matchmaker is going to wait longer, period, which means not only would you get closer games in terms of SR, but if you wait longer and the game can sort of use tie-breaking factors to try to avoid putting 2 Mercies on the same team or 2 DPS players of the same type, it would just overall increase the quality of games. So it does come at a cost. You're not going to be able to instantly queue in the games as quick as you do now. But when you get in the games, it sounds like you're going to get a higher quality experience on multiple levels, which I think is a positive thing.
Yeah. Flame, anything you pulled from that? Did you caught it, right? You saw it, right?
Yeah, I mean, I watched most of it live.
Yeah.
I had to renew my Seagull sub because it was his first time out of jail in like 2 months or something. But I mean, I was more excited that he gave like a kind of, we're trying to have stats and replays and like scoreboards by BlizzCon. I thought that was really cool as someone that like watches and wants to be able to watch without being at the mercy of the YouTube VODs. Like that's it's really rough for me right now.
Replays, man. Craig has them. Totally. Replays are going to be amazing.
It sounds like they're making some UI changes and like some fundamental like spawn times and like stall changes and stuff. So like it's good that they're doing all this now, and I think that like they're realizing, like, hey, Overwatch League is soon. Like we got to make this game as well paced and like as well watchable as we can, and I think that that's like really good.
Yeah, I mean, so the spectator stuff, I've been hearing rumors of stuff for a while, so I'm not sure how much was super new in reading that. But I mean, just know that good stuff is coming. Blizzard knows that spectator should be improved, especially with bigger projects like Overwatch League coming in the future, and it's going to get better. You can expect it to get better, and that's just, what we've heard today is just more confirmation that, hey, cool stuff's on the way. So, if you're a fan of watching Overwatch, your experience should be getting better soon.
Yeah, I was never really worried about them providing the tools for it as much as it's just the human aspect of it. People controlling these tools. I mean, that's where we need to work on what we need to work on the most right now. Okay, anything else? Let's see. MMR reset. He didn't really say much. He basically said they're not going to do an MMR reset in his weird example that he was given there with the bell curve. Other than the Lucio Ball, they really enjoy what's going on with Lucio Ball and this competitive thing. Speaking of Lucio Ball, ZP, how was the Lucio Ball event? To kind of like a tangent here.
Oh, it was absolutely fun. It was great to just sort of, be more casual in broadcasting and have some fun with it, where you get to make up your own storylines, where we got to see players that, we don't usually see in the competitive community show some fun moves in Lucio Ball earlier today. And the EU event overall was a blast. I think not only did the players have fun, the viewers had a lot of fun, the commentators had fun. And hey, I mean, it's an event where we got like 6K viewers.
That's
for
awesome.
Lucio Ball.
That's crazy.
So, I mean,
no,
it was like super fun. And it's I think it actually lends some credence to the idea that perhaps for fun mini games like Lucio Ball, perhaps there should be more streamed events like that people could put together in the future if it lends itself to that type of format.
Yeah, I totally agree. I mean, I think these type of community events are very rare in the Overwatch community. We used to see some of these events in maybe the StarCraft community and things like that. But ever since the arcade, or not the arcade, but the map editor came out, or just that whole custom game and arcade and everything, I felt like we were going to see more of that, but we've seen nothing basically since then. I mean, Flame, I even talked to you about it, right? Like, it'd be so awesome to create these different types of silly games, and we saw some of them. We saw like some McCree races, we saw some Lucio racing across Numbani and things like that, but nothing's really stuck at all to become something like Lucio Ball.
Before we get too far from the point, by the way,
Yeah.
shout out to Zohan. The man was a beast today.
So, okay.
I would be remiss if I didn't mention that.
Zohan.
Continue.
I mean, it's weird. It's hard because again, like setting up lobbies in this game is actually super tedious. And like until we have the ability to like save and load and put passwords on it, it's like kind of a hassle actually to like get people in the server. Because I have to like have people on friends list, like even like because I have a community, right? And like there's a lot of them. So like getting 12 of them isn't hard, but getting 12 of them added to friends and then inviting them and then like finding a fair way to like bring people in and out is like really, really hard. So
yeah, I hear you.
I think eventually, like that's probably really low on the totem pole. I would imagine on like the Blizzard update totem pole. So
We need invite
like,
links.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, like exactly.
Yeah,
Like something like that.
right.
Invite link. We need invite links. We need like join through. Like I need to be able to just like post a link in Discord, and then people can join through it. Like that'd be sick.
Right. No,
And, like just have a server up 24/7 that like I can pay for. That's just like mine. You know, like stuff like that. I think will eventually happen. But
yeah,
like you need that. I think before the custom games become like sick.
Reading between the lines there, Flame wants to ban people. He wants the power.
he wants full control.
I want my toxic community
To be in full force, right? Okay. Well, anyways, to conclude the Q&A, again, Scott Merce, thanks for doing that. Thanks for Seagull for obviously being the interviewer in that particular case. And it's always great to get a chance to interface with the developers. Next bit, let's talk about player and team news, because there's, as always, lots of player and team news going on, particularly Overwatch League this week. So first off, the first bit of news is that Overwatch Boston was tweeting all day, definitely threw out some hints that they made their first hire, and then towards the end of the afternoon they announced who that first hire is. So they are excited to welcome President of Gaming Huck. So I think that's the first president that we've had in all of Overwatch esports outside of like Blizzard. I'm thinking. So what do you guys think of this move? And is this the start of a lot of management and executives being assigned or hired by all these organizations?
Well, first off, I'd say it's somewhat of non-news, right? Given the fact that I feel like we got the same exact announcement a few weeks ago, effectively saying the same thing. I guess title differences, whatever.
Now it's on Twitter, ZP. It's real.
Yeah, it's on Twitter. It's even more real. So yeah, I mean that's going out. It's not like a new news. I mean, the most I'd say there is that this is an awesome opportunity for Huck, right? Where we'll see what he's capable of in Boston, but this is literally just a once in a lifetime chance to make something great, and we'll see if he can live up to it.
Yeah, I think, the president title is kind of bizarre, but I think a lot of it came down to the fact that, like, I think there's only a few cities right now that don't have orgs, like endemics with them. So I think it's more like, we're going to start a new endemic kind of, and like someone needs to be in charge of it. So that's kind of how I took it, more so than like people were saying that maybe he's just involved with like Overwatch, like the manager, but he just gave himself a really cool title. But I think it's more close to like, I'm in charge of overseeing everything underneath this name, because they're not going to get an endemic.
Is that not just evidence
sense
of some sort of acumen there, though, where he's been in the chair for like 2 weeks, has already upgraded his title to president? If in another 2 weeks, he might be the emperor and overlord of
Supreme leader,
esports.
Yes. Global director.
The next level is the COG, right? Chairman of Gaming. That's where he's going to be.
The Prime Minister.
Prime Minister.
King.
The ultimate Prime Minister, President, King, Emperor, Overlord.
Czar of Gaming. I wonder what title would be the most impressive. Emperor, Czar. What else? The Sultan of Gaming. That'd be pretty sweet.
Like, I'm not going to be satisfied until Huck comes out of Boston esports with a Daenerys Targaryen level title chain. And it'll need to be announced by any announcer who talks about him being at events.
Chris Laringer, first of his name.
Mother of Tracers.
Breaker Chains.
Yeah, Breaker of Chains.
The one of top 3 control, whatever.
Yeah. Anyways, congrats to Huck for obviously getting this great opportunity, and best of luck to him. And we'll see what kind of team that Overwatch Boston ends up building here.
I think we'll see more of this. I think that this is the first of many, if I had to guess.
Yeah, for sure.
There's people staffing out like for their orgs.
I mean, really, it is a gold rush, though, right? In terms of the idea that we're going to be seeing a lot of people take on management roles with different OWL teams. Some people are going to be very successful and really secure their spot in esports for decades to come, perhaps. And some people are going to flame out. So it is going to be entertaining to sort of watch the mini Game of Thrones for OWL executive leadership as it goes down.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see even who gets picked, and like there's always going to be a lot of commentary on just who gets picked for these positions. But I'm curious to see if Huck is the start of this, and it's like, are we going to see more? Basically folks that have had experience in esports, whether it's Overwatch or it's other esports. Are we going to see more managerial people, like that we've seen, or people that have held management positions in esports, particularly Overwatch? I mean, we definitely have people in management in Overwatch already, and I would suspect those type of people would be getting calls, like Alicus, those type of guys, right? I mean, like.
Well, I'm pretty sure Alicus is just with C9 now. C9 just
already got his call.
That's true. Yeah, he already got his call. That's true.
Like a whale eating a school of fish, like C9 just sort of flowed their way over and absorbed all the laser cannons. That's how that went down. Yeah. I think they chopped them down, management and all, as far as I know.
That's true. But anyways, that'll be good to watch. We've got something with LW Blue that's popped up recently. They've withdrawn from Apex Season 4 last minute. So obviously OGN hasn't been very happy about that. And they're going to be competing in Overwatch League Season 1. So they're going to be moving to NA from Korea. And there's all the speculation because LW Blue said, it's because we're dropping out of Apex because we want to compete in Overwatch League. But the schedule doesn't really line up correctly because Apex doesn't even overlap with Overwatch League. So people are wondering what's going on here. Why, do they have to withdraw from Apex Season 4? I mean, it still would have been great to see them playing there, and I think it would be good for them too. So what's going on here, guys?
So I don't know all the details, or really any details aside from anything that's public here, but it feels like there was an error in judgment made, because here's how I imagine this went down. Let's assume that some OWL team did acquire LW Blue, and it was a case where it was the sole team there. Now they just feel uncomfortable having sister teams competing, because you've had sister teams compete at Apex before. It'd be a little bit weird if that was a deal breaker. But assuming that wasn't the case, you would have to think that some North American OWL franchise got LW Blue, and the reasoning was, well, we want to get them acclimated to living in North America, and we want to do this as soon as possible. I don't know if the benefits of that come anywhere close to the benefits of competing in a full Apex season if you're getting ready to prep for Overwatch League. So maybe there's a good reason, but on face value, it seems like something is being valued more highly than a full season of Apex practice, which doesn't seem great.
Okay. Flame, what do you think?
All right. I'll put on my, what's the word? Like the tinfoil. So I had this thought too, because in NA right now, there's like a weird thing going on where like a lot of Contenders teams are getting poached and like broken apart in the background by like OWL orgs, like trying to get the players for their teams. And it's kind of creating I think it's going to create this like massive rift as we get to the end of Contenders, where like a lot of the teams aren't even really teams anymore, and they're just kind of stuck playing together because they have to. I mean, as bad as it is to say, I think that's like a reality. I think maybe LW Blue might be in a similar situation, and instead of continuing into it, they're already committed and they just don't want to be in that situation where they're playing Apex with a squad that's not going to stay together. That makes sense to me as the only reason why you would do that, because again, it doesn't make sense for them to be leaving at the same time if like there is no overlap. So I would imagine that maybe like half of them maybe are getting poached and they already agreed, and maybe like there's a problem there. That's the only thing that makes sense in my head.
Okay, so where do you think they're going? Or at least where do you think maybe the majority of the team's going? What's your guess, at least, if you were to speculate?
I mean, there's only like 2 orgs, I think, right now that are, or 3 that are like question marks, right? There's like the second LA squad, the one that's the Cronkies, and then you have Huck's team, and then you have Bare Hands' team. So I would imagine one of the 3, if they're not like the backup squad for Lunatic High or something.
Yeah, I mean, you could go down the list and you can create some likely prospects, but actually reading the tea leaves and going, it's this team, without directly talking with those orgs and being like, well, did you do it? And then finally ruling it out until you get to the one that says, I can't tell you. And it's like, well, everyone else told me they didn't do it, so clearly you're the one that's giving me the Glomar response, ergo you are the one. But yeah, exactly. I mean, short of doing some basic detective work, I mean, who knows?
Yeah. Speaking of Lunatic High, they had the big press conference, or at least Team Soul had their giant press conference, and no surprise here, I think we all knew that Lunatic High was announced as that team representing them. And so a lot of people have been talking about just Lunatic High, moving over here or moving to LA, and what type of impact that would have on the team, or just generally how would they perform, coming over here. Would it be the same dominance that we've seen, with them, winning Apex, or at least, that just how they've performed in the past and just winning Apex and things like that? Or would we actually see an effect with them living in the US versus living at home, and obviously having to practice here and play on the ladder here and all that good stuff? So what do you guys think? I mean, what's your take on Lunatic High moving to LA, and how do you think they're going to perform in Overwatch League?
Well, I think it's a bit of a wild card, right? Where anytime you're changing that many factors, where you're bringing a team of 6, you're moving them to another country, you're moving them to a country where, to be frank, in terms of quality of scrims and just ladder play, you are taking a dip in player preparation there on face value. But we don't know how much of Lunatic High's management and coaching staff is going with them. We don't know how the players will adapt to living in another country. So it's a case where there's a lot of unknowns. You know that you are getting a lot of players that performed at a very high level in Overwatch. You would hope that the team would also be stacking it with depth. So if you do have a few players that perhaps don't perform up to the high level, that you have good backups ready. But like anything else, the answer is we'll see. I think the only thing I would say there is that you can't assume that there will be a super high level of dominance, especially when teams that have no circumstances change for them can fade rather quickly, as we've seen with Rogue.
Yeah, I mean, we just watched them lose to MVP Space, and I thought MVP Space completely outplayed them, to be honest, throughout that series. So the team's already on its. I mean, obviously they swapped out Guido for Lutasian, but I think if you're gonna
meta too. I mean, with
but you also have to realize that the meta is going to change, right? And you have Eska who plays maybe 2 heroes. You have Guido who maybe plays 2 heroes. I mean, it's not. I don't know if it's gonna be a problem, but it's weird to me that you had this opportunity right now to rebrand or rebuild, and you didn't. The South Korean Overwatch team for World Cup isn't Lunatic High. There's a reason why it's not Lunatic High, and there's a reason why teams are getting made. I feel like you could upgrade Lunatic High and keep their core, but they didn't. So I think if you're a Western team now, you're saying okay, that's a lot less scary than what it could have potentially been, at least in my opinion.
Yeah.
So that's how I view it.
The other thing I'd point out here, too, is that I think it's somewhat of a misnomer to think that your best OWL teams will be teams that just run a core of 6 starters, period. Realistically speaking, I think the teams that will do really well in Overwatch League will be the teams that have at least 8 to 10 players that are being swapped in at least on situational basis alone. So the era of we have 6 players who are doing really well, we're not swapping much at all or rarely if that entire era of Overwatch is going to end. So you're going to see teams with far more specialized practice, more depth to the rosters than otherwise. So even if you do grab some of the best players from Lunatic High, you're still going to need to grab other pieces to compete in sort of this new Overwatch era. So again, there's a lot of potential there. There's a lot of good players, but we'll see where it goes.
They did say it's the first 6, and I think that they were saying that there's going to be another 6. But in my opinion, I feel like a 12-man situation is a lot of people. I mean, that's just my opinion on how it works. Could you imagine having to manage 2 teams at once? I feel like that's a lot. That's a lot of people to worry about, and a lot of people plan for, and a lot of people worry. There's so many every time you add a new piece to a pre-existing puzzle, it starts getting a little bit shakier, and there's more room for disruption. I don't know. It seems hard.
That's where management and coaches are going to matter so much in Overwatch League, right? Where you take a look at traditional sports, you have large coaching staffs that help manage something like even an NBA team that has a smaller roster, or God forbid an NFL team with 53 players. You have a lot of personnel to help manage that and get the most out of it. And I would think that for Overwatch League, the teams that are able to not only have a good coach, but good supporting staff to keep all of that in line, to have good strategies for different maps and actually make the most out of what you can actually do in the setup, those teams are going to do well. the teams that aren't able to get strong management, strong coaching, and can't really make do with extra resources, well, they're going to fail, even if their starting 6 have incredible talent.
I still think 12 is too many, though. Like, there's going to be
unless you're gonna like split it up into like 2, and you're gonna have like 2 sets of everything. Maybe that's doable and
yeah, but even if you have 2 sets, I mean, we're not talking about like this grueling, 120 game season like a baseball team, or even like the 82 game season the basketball team. We're talking about a season that's not going to be that bad. Like, you're not going to need to sub in like a whole team. You're only going to be subbing in players. I would be very shocked if they sub in like mass amounts of people, depending on, I mean, maybe it's a scheduling thing, like they can't travel, but the first season it's all in LA. So it's like, there's not going to be an issue in that regard.
Okay. So you're almost making a player fatigue argument here. And I'm making this is a game with a lot
it's like 12 people though. It's like, I mean, there's something to be said about the same core, like 5-6 guys playing together and just getting that chemistry. If you're constantly swapping people out, like you're not getting that. At least at a faster rate.
I can already give you some good examples where it'd be viable, and this is just with this meta right now that has less heroes than what we're going to be seeing soon, and honestly, where teams haven't explored it. To give you an example, there's players right now in the category of, let's look at Pharahs, right? You have extremely good Pharah players that in cases aren't really good at other heroes at time to time, but would be very much worthwhile in either swapping in against a team that is historically somewhat weaker against Pharahs, or on maps that are really generous to Pharah play, or compositions that are good to Pharah play. So already, like in that case alone, you already have an example for having a Pharah specialist on your team if your main projectile DPS isn't that. I would argue that given the different combinations that you could get with hit scan projectile DPS, that you would very much be well suited to having an extra hit scan DPS and an extra projectile DPS, and making sure that at least one of your 2 in each category is good at Genji and Tracer respectively. So you add those on there, suddenly your roster of 6 already is up to 9, potentially, depending on the strengths of your players. And then you get to all the other areas where you can have hero-specific mercenaries. There's a lot of ways of making a larger roster work, and if you have someone intelligent behind the scenes managing this, you're going to find ways to make that work. The idea that, oh, we just have our 5 core people, this is fine, they're not fatigued, whatever, I don't think that's going to be the case.
So, I mean, I get your point. In an ideal situation, sure, like on paper, that totally sounds right. That totally sounds possible. But I just don't think that's realistic, at least for a while, for teams to be able to pull that off. Even just from, like, again, like communication and just familiarity with each other. I mean, you can only practice so many games in a day. And if you're swapping people constantly out, I mean, you're having a different set of 6 people, playing, I don't know how many, like, let's just say you play 40 games in a day, right? You might have different combinations like that, or you have the same combination playing, I don't know, maybe 10 games a day. I don't know. Like, I feel like that's an issue.
That's why you need good coaching. Flame, what do you think?
Yeah, what do you think?
I don't know. Like, okay, I'm down with like 8. I think 8's my magic number.
I think 9 or 10.
I think I think 10's like pushing it. I think like you could realistically have like 2 sets of DPS or something, and like maybe you like swap out like the entire setup, and instead of like playing like a 1-for-1 kind of thing, like you have like your Pharah and like a Genji, and then you have like a Tracer and something else, and maybe you like keep your core, and then everyone else swaps depending on like how you're going to do it, or like what you're, maybe if you're losing, you're like, all right, well, our Tracer 76 combo is not working, let's try the Pharah Genji, and like maybe that's a cool idea.
Yeah, I can see that. Yeah,
but like 12, man, 12's like you're scrimming against yourself. Like that's like to the point where, what do you like? How many people realistically do you need? Like, are you going to pick up like a Genji main and then only swap him in when you need Genji, and then the enemy team just knows like, okay, they're probably running Genji, or else they wouldn't have put this guy in, and then like the game gets really wonky at that point. Like, I don't even know if we're at a point where we have more than like 1 tactical pause per series. So like that's all.
Okay,
that's
first
like
of all, do not call that tactical pause. Time out.
Go.
They are time out. Not tactical pauses.
I know that.
I'm just reading off the Apex screen, whatever. I agree, but I'm just saying, like, unless the game is at a point where I'm allowed to like get 8 people sitting at the desk and I can like randomly sub them out during a series, like
that'd be hilarious, dude.
Also,
awesome.
Let's keep in mind that given the signing windows and all the rest, it's likely that you'll on your given roster you'll have like 8 to 9 players that are actually actively used, and then people that are there in case shit happens or a player suddenly goes down, or like just replacements, period. Like, to use an example, if you go back to, I think, like the 2007, 2008 era Celtics. You need your Brian Scalabrinis, the people that see almost no play time and only come
favorites.
out every now and then.
Yeah, sure. Sure.
No, I mean, you are going to need those players just as backups, right? So I would think you would be maybe a few Overwatch League teams will end up without a full roster, but you'd want to have a full roster of 12 just for that reason alone in case people end up falling out and you need to replace them. And
but you need to pay them, man. Can't you just like go grab somebody?
That's true. Yeah, I mean that. And it's
well, there's a signing
hard.
window. There will be a point where you can't add people to your roster mid-season. Like they're treating this more as if it were a traditional sport. You can't go right now like it is in say Contenders and go, oh, let's just grab this dude who's not on a team. This is gonna be fine. There are signing windows here, so you're going to need to grab people just in case, even if they don't see much play time.
Yeah.
That's and I guess keeping players happy too that are like at the end of the bench. I guess just being in Overwatch League is just where you want to be. Like, just you'd be happy, right?
I guess from that standpoint, you probably would almost want 12 because at least then like everyone's playing instead of like having two dudes that are probably just sitting there like, you know, it's my turn, guys. You know, like
it's like go, guys, like give massages and like make sure you're like all ready. That sort of thing.
Yeah, like that's where it gets wonky. But
also in chat, I just want to say so much love to MF Doomfist for also remembering the Brian Scalabrine era and then calling him what he was, which was the human victory cigar. Thank you so much for that comment. You brought joy to my life.
That's what they called him? I never. That's funny. That's definitely a great nickname.
I mean, he did usually come out with the Celtics were leading by 20 or 30 points and could not lose the game, and they were resting Garnett, Pierce, and Allen. Just like, yeah.
Brian Scalabrine was that guy. I think at one point they even had a video series or some kind of TV series where they would have him walk into some random gym and Brian Scalabrine, nobody knew him. Like nobody recognized his face, or at least not a lot of folks that don't watch basketball. And then they'd be like, "This is white guy walking in, and like he looks completely out of shape." And then he would just be destroying people. And there was like basically a bet every time he would walk in a gym, and they would just be punking people basically with Brian Scalabrine. It was so funny. But okay, well, anyways, I think a roster. So you think big roster is going to play a big part here? So I guess we'll have to see what ends up happening with Lunatic High. The reason I brought up the question is just because there was obviously something, or like on Taimu's stream, Taimu actually doesn't think they're going to be doing well. Just the whole not living at home is a big factor for them. And I mean I think
Timo still has like PTSD from the hotel, so like I think he's kind of just like thinking like the same thing's going to happen to all the teams in Cali.
Sure.
People like talking about the biggest fights in Overwatch history, and Temu versus OGN Hotel is definitely up there. Apparently, it was actually a fairly nice lodging for what I've heard from more objective sources, but it gets a bit much to live there for 8 to 9 months.
Oh man, I've died living in a hotel for 8 or 9 months in another country. But all right, another bit of news here is we got some players leaving teams, and actually some people leaving teams just really because they want to focus on streaming to some extent. And then we got some people looking for teams. So let's start off with the folks leaving. Hardblue steps down from NRG to focus on streaming. He's still taking offers from folks, but it does sound like he's wanting to focus more on his stream. So what do you guys take from this in terms of Hardblue in Overwatch League?
I mean, he sounded super burnt out in his stream and interviews. So I think it's more, I don't know, NRG was kind of a mess for a while, like to put it lightly. Yeah. And I think he kind of got stuck riding this sinking ship that kept sinking for a very, very long time. And now he's like at the point where he's like, I'm done. I want to.
Tired of answering these questions. Yeah.
Yeah. And I'm tired of like, just being a part of something that's not like giving back what he put in. So I think it's just him saying like, I need to break.
Mm-hmm. You see it happen with a lot of players where if they get stuck on team rebuild after team rebuild, that they hit a point where they, as Flame mentioned, you do need a break. Now, whether or not Harb will be coming back at some point, who knows? It is known, though, that when you get really entrenched in the streamer life, it is difficult to make a comeback to competitive. And this is, on a side note, this kind of reminds me of the idea where I don't think you're going to be seeing a lot of players that are actively playing on OWL teams putting in tons of stream hours, because anytime you're doing streaming, it's not as good as actual practice for one, but it still contributes to your burnout meter. So it really is hard if you're someone who has a really big stream, because if you want to go super hard in the Overwatch League, it's going to be pretty hard to be active at Overwatch League while still keeping a good stream schedule. Not impossible, but I think very few people will manage to ride that line and then actually perform well in their owl matches.
Yeah, I could. Yeah, I definitely see that. Let's see, another couple of players looking for teams right now. Onigod leaves Toronto Esports and is looking for a team. And then Tailspin even tweeted today that he was looking for a team. So a lot of folks, I think, are happy to see Tailspin, actively looking for a team now versus just kind of hanging out and waiting. So what do you guys think?
I mean, it's a little late.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
You know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
I don't know.
Like,
like,
come on, dude.
It's like all right, dude, cool. Like, you're looking for a team. Like,
yeah.
where the hell have you been for the past 8 months? Like, I mean, that's how I looked at it.
Yeah.
There's been a lot of opportunities, I think, for a lot of these players. And even the ones that haven't been playing on teams have been putting in the hours to, like, scrim and, like...
Yeah, he got to invest some time into it leading into Overwatch League versus,
agreed.
what's going to happen? Somebody pick me up.
It's like, oh, well, it's here. Time to look for it. Like, like, that's not... Yeah, that's how I look at that.
Tailspin's always been a player that's had tons and tons of potential, just outrageous amounts of potential. I don't know if he's lived up to that potential in Overwatch. I think right now, if I were someone making Owl team, I would still consider him and just sort of the Pharah spot because his ability to play Pharah is still like incredibly legitimate. It was ridiculous a year ago. If you've seen recent footage of him, he still has an incredibly good Pharah. And I think he's worth considering for a team for that alone. But again, this goes back to the entire idea of depth on Overwatch League spots because you need someone that can play a whole bunch of things really well. And I think Tail can get back to that level, but for now, I think he's sort of in the I want to pick up this guy for a good Pharah slot right now.
That's his best bet. I mean, really, just going off that reputation and just even just what you see right now. So, I'd like to see Tailspin on a team. That'd still be great to see because some of the best memories I have of Overwatch were from beta, and Tailspin was a large part of some of those. So it'd be definitely good to see. Any other bit of news? I feel like as I have to look at Reddit just to make sure there isn't anything else that happened like while we've been on air, but I don't think there's anything else for now. So why don't we move on to an event, Overwatch Contender Season 1. Obviously ZP, you've been watching. I mean, everybody's been watching, obviously. And what do you guys think so far of I guess the matches? Let's just talk about the matches first. So NA, we've seen Rogue lose already. Envious 4-0 Immortals, which was I think a lot of people wanted to see that matchup in the first week and see how it panned out, given that Immortals was very hot, coming into this first season, and Envious coming back from Korea, and seeing how those two kind of line up. So first impressions of what you saw from NA.
Well, for starters, all the rumors, whispers about Rogue and how they're performing behind the scenes did turn out to be true. They definitely are off their game right now. And I think it's a mix of factors here. I mean, Flame, you could agree or disagree with me here once I finish this, gave this out. But it's like, I feel like for Rogue, it's a combination of factors. One is that they are playing sloppier than they used to. And I mean, take your pick for reasons as to why that may be. Too much time on top, not enough time practicing post-Korea, whatever. They're definitely a little bit off. But the other part here is that when Rogue was really crushing people, they were crushing people back when people weren't all that accustomed to deal with dive comp. There wasn't the amount of just crazy good tracers. Soon was in a class of his own, and now he's in a class of many other really good tracers. He's not the only godlike tracer in town. And what that means is that people have gotten very used to isolating a superstar tracer. They've gotten better at dealing with rogue style play in general. And now we're also heading to a meta where you might not want to always run a rogue style dive. So I feel like a lot of factors have sort of combined here to give Rogue a hard time.
Okay, so I think there's like multiple pieces here because we saw them in China. Or
yes,
were you there? I don't remember.
No, I wasn't. No, I avoided.
Yeah, so I was there, and they were very they weren't motivated, when they were there, and they like almost lost a few games and like had a rough time actually getting. I mean, they won all of their series, but it wasn't like the cleanest wins, and you could kind of tell that they weren't really feeling it. But I think that they're in a spot right now where they're not announced for Overwatch League, and I think that that's like super on their minds at all times, and like trying to figure out how they're going to get there. They're also a team that did, I mean, to ZP's point, they did abuse the fact that they did have that high skill like aiming and stuff like that. And we did see Soon actually fall off for a little bit, but I felt like Soon actually had like the best performance of like anyone this week, or you can make a case for him having like one of the best individual performances. Like his tracer was on point again, which was nice because he had been playing a lot more passive and a lot less risky, but he was getting away with it and he was winning his duels and he was hitting some incredible bombs. But again, they were a team that was never known for their ult management. And now teams are getting really, really good at it. Like teams aren't making the same mistakes where they double support ult during fights, and teams aren't blowing their primal rages to not stall the cart anymore. And teams aren't, like everyone has a plan now, and like people are just getting a lot more refined in their gameplay. And Rogue was never that team that was really good. They were like the team that would just, at least at the economy, like they were always just like, all right, we're just going to burn ults to delay the cart, and we're going to burn ults to win fights, like even if you shouldn't. And they just kind of relied on mechanics. And then now you have teams that are catching up on mechanics and then surpassing them in ult economy, and suddenly they get a lot less scary.
And to that point, the reason why teams have gotten better at ult economy and all the rest is that they've been playing against variants of the Rogue comp, as it was called, over and over again for the last few months, where you look at EU Contender Season 0, most of the teams were effectively Rogue running at varying different levels of skill. So at this point, no one is particularly surprised at dealing with that particular comp. And as you mentioned, they've gotten much better in the ult economy sense and managing their fights and dealing with it. So you combine all these factors where you mentioned just the internal stress on Rogue for wondering about OWL stuff and everything else that's combining here. It's this perfect storm to give Rogue less than great results relative to what they had a month or two ago.
Well, worrying about OWL, I mean, don't you think performing well in Contenders is probably the best thing to do right now if you're worried about that and trying to get, just have people just make a definitive decision on you?
They're not going to split up that team, I don't think. Like if they do, it'll be like 1 or 2 players leaving, not the whole squad. And like I think they're kind of banking on Rogue getting like an org. There's a few teams I think that are in us, like Envy's not announced right now, right? Like they don't have a city. Like I think Envy and Rogue are in that same position where they're both. I would assume Envy's got something going on. Like, but I haven't heard anything through the grapevine about Rogue. There hasn't been any leaks about Rogue. I don't actually know anything. But
this doesn't help either, though.
I wouldn't assume Rogue stays together. I was just going to note here. I wouldn't note or assume that Rogue stays together because in the end, I feel like if you don't have an immediate suitor trying to grab them, and you have, say, in OWL org, go up to say soon and go soon, we want to pay you $100,000 a year to be part of us right now. No, we don't want to take, we'll take AKM, but maybe we won't take like some of the other people.
I heard Rogue has them on like very fat buyouts. Like fat buyouts. So it's a weird spot for them to be in, I think, right now.
So are you saying then that it would be a case where just for buyouts alone, you would want to leverage Rogue into buying out all of them for a lesser fee rather than just buying one piece and
I just think for one sale.
I think that they're in a spot where they want their own city, like they want to represent. I don't know. Like if I'm them, I want to go to Paris, right? Like France has been behind them the entire way. They have like that Avec les 6 thing where like their entire country is like hashtagging their games and stuff. Like if I'm them, I want Paris to buy me, and I think that like that's on my plate right now, and I think that they're focusing on like I don't know if they're focusing on that, but that's what I'm thinking if I'm Rogue.
Okay, so you're saying then that, for me, I don't know where Rogue stands on all that, but you're just assuming then that Rogue will get funding for an OWL spot and and they'll just stick together like that. I mean, that's very
I can't imagine that that's not what they're pushing for.
Okay. Well, I'm sure they're pushing for it. It's just, I feel like their window is shrinking just because they're not helping themselves.
Of course.
You know what I mean?
Like, well, yeah, but at the same time, it's like they're not going to invest. You're not going to invest in coaching if you don't have a slot right now. And like they have a coach, but they clearly need more ult economy time, or they need to care more currently. I think that they're still like in that spot where right now nothing. Like I think they're going to come back next week and be really good. I don't think losing week 1 for them is a big deal. I think like you can chop down their game mistakes to like a few really big moments. I mean, obviously Envision played out of their minds. Like not to take anything.
They played
away from
awesome.
Envision,
they did play.
But
good.
Like you did have Rogue like trying like whenever ACAM's on fire, you're just kind of like, okay, I don't like this, and they keep doing it and then they'll lose, and then you're like, okay, did they really need to do that? So like it's always like there's always a reason for a loss, and there's always like times where you can be like, oh, we could have fixed this, but I don't see this team like getting rolled over for the rest of the contenders. Like I don't think that that's a thing.
The other thing that I think is probably worth noting here too, and it might just be one member, but it is a factor, is that not every member on Rogue is 100% focusing on Overwatch right now. Some of them are playing other games. That is a well-known fact. That's why they have a sub coming in for week number 2, and for it's Colsty coming in for wins. So anytime you have a situation where not everyone is on the same page, and as a result you're not getting practice with all 6 members as frequently as you would like, that's also going to hurt your team pretty badly.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay, I guess talking about any of the other matches, anything stand out here? The FaZe FNR GFE matches, I think was a very entertaining one. Lots of Team USA players in that matchup, so that was a lot of fun. And Congarna too. Renegades. Obviously probably not one of the strongest teams in this group, but Congarna had looked pretty solid just going 4-0 against them too.
Renegades look pretty Renegades. Like they had
bad Renegades.
That game. Not even bad. It was just like you make one mistake at the wrong time, like one massive mistake at the wrong time, and suddenly you lose a map. And that happens to them twice in the series. And then if that happens to you twice in a row, and you're like, so the thing with those series is that you lose the 3 maps and it's already a loss. So then you wind up in the 4th map where now it's like, okay, even if I win this, I still lost. So like if you lose those 2 maps the way that they lost those 2 middle maps, which was like we're just not going to touch the point on Volskaya, and we're gonna. They couldn't execute the Graviton Death Blossom combo on King's Row. Like that's super, super demotivating. So like that series was 4-0, but it wasn't like it didn't feel like a 4-0. It didn't look like a 4-0. Like it was still a really good match. Mm-hmm. And I did think that Congarna played really well, and like Retzi played really well. I thought that was really cool that they brought him in.
I was really glad to see Retzi there, though. Let's go to the sort of big issue here for Renegades and roster swaps, in that the best D.Va player on Renegades was Jesus. Period. He was their best D.Va player. And I'm not going to even attempt to decipher whatever politics were going on within Renegades. But I know that if you've hit a situation where you're putting Mangachu on D.Va over Jesus, something has been messed up here. And, again, maybe it's a case where Mangachu's doing more of the calling, etc. But that's a really big positional mismatch when you're throwing Mangachu on D.Va versus Bishu on D.Va. It just is. Bishu is a much better tank in that role, and that definitely was not doing Renegades any favors in this matchup.
Yeah, Renegades have been kind of plagued by roster swaps ever since they got rid of Mana Snow during whatever tournament that was, where they were doing well, cut him, and then lost out. It was a little weird.
Yeah,
but they'll figure out what they're doing, I guess, eventually.
Anybody going to push Envy in this Contenders? Any of these 7 teams going to push Envy?
Immortals underperformed 100%. That match wasn't Immortals' best. No, Envy looked really strong, for sure. Everyone played incredibly well on Envy. It was a very clean. I was surprised at how clean it was, given the way Timo talked about them going into it. But Immortals really was not the Immortals that I expected in that match in particular. So it was a 4-0, but it wasn't I didn't feel the Immortals, in that match.
Immortals is the Rocky of Overwatch right now, and they've been doing this for 17, where they will start a tournament and play like crap. They will not start out tournaments well, but then they'll make an adjustment. Of course, at Contender Season 0 was a roster change, but they'll make some adjustments and suddenly go from, oh, we're getting wrecked, to, wait, we're actually really good again. I wouldn't worry too much about Immortals in the long term. And to what Flame was saying, Envy, even though they looked really good, I don't think their future run-ins with Immortals will be as easy. And also, remember, with how volatile Overwatch has been, we've seen upset after upset. Envy is clearly the most battle-tested and absolutely the favorite, but there's no guarantees that you keep that status over a 6-week tournament, even though I do think in Envy's case, I don't see them going any lower than 4.
Yeah, I think the best match of the week was, I guess the Envision Rogue one was good, but from a level of play and learning, I would say the FaZe FNR match was super high level in terms of the way that they were all playing. It was kind of a slugfest between Carpe and Clockwork for a while, and then
that's right.
I think the supports on FNR GFE are super good and pretty unknown, and Fact Fiction versus Mumu was also it's just a lot of really good matchups in that series. Definitely.
FNR GFE is carried by tanks, I feel more so than anything else. What Muma and Matt have put together there is very impressive. And if you take a look at the average fight that breaks down there, it's usually either Muma or Matt that get opening kills versus it being Clockwork or Buds. I do think Buds was a bit out of his depth when he went on Doomfist. It was not a good showing for him. He clearly did not have much time on that hero. Anytime he was on Doomfist, it was not good.
Yeah, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, just a general to that point, but historically, when you look at FNR GFE, they really have made their money off tank play rather than anything else.
Yeah, that might be a good segue to what I was going to bring up here, which was Doomfist, just the impact on the meta and just people playing it. I feel like the teams that did well had better Doomfist players than the ones that didn't. Did you see that? being a trend here, especially in contenders? I mean, we're going to talk about in Apex also, but what have you been seeing, just in terms of the meta and it maybe changing up a little bit?
Effect and Leaf were great. So yes,
Yeah,
good
right.
good Doomfist play is very helpful right now. For two reasons. A, the hero is just probably outright really good in his pre-nerf state. And two is that teams haven't figured out how to play around him. So if you've figured out how to play with him, you're already adding on an extra edge beyond the part where the hero is good to begin with. So yes, get a good Doomfist player. Get one quickly. You're probably going to see more of him.
Is it fun to watch? What do you think, Flame? Is it
No,
fun
the
to
hero's
watch?
definitely fun to watch. It's just, I mean, is it fun to play against? That's another question. But no, I mean, it's one of those heroes that like people haven't really figured out how to like counter, and I think that's like whatever. I think Blizzard's obviously like aware of that. Like you can run Sombra into it. You can try to run McCree. You can run like I think Roadhog's actually pretty decent against him, but then you're running Roadhog and you kind of wind up in that spot where you're like, is there a better hero here? But yeah, it's like teams are like, I think against Rogue it looked really good because that team again, like they kind of felt like Lunatic High felt, like what the hell is this hero and what do I do? And they just kind of get ran over by it.
Yeah.
And that's like, again, that's like not seeing a lot of it and like not knowing how good Effect is. I think Effect has like something ridiculous, like an 80% ranked win rate with that hero. So like,
dude,
just having someone like that's just gonna like delete your supports ridiculous amounts of times. It's like it makes the match that much easier for you. So I think as the tournament goes on, as we get more patches, like we're about to get like I think the biggest balance patch we've ever had in terms of like shaking the meta because we've been stuck on dive heroes for like
months.
Lord knows how long. It feels like it's been like the entire year, and like we're finally gonna get like these Junkrat buffs, these Roadhog buffs, the changes to like. I feel like there's the Diva changes. There's so many things here that are going to be different, and I think that's going to start messing with people's perception of like what's good, what's bad, and like how to comment stuff.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's move on to Europe since that was NA. Europe, there were some interesting results here. First off, Misfits 4-0ing one of their rivals, formerly Laser Kittens C9. And then we saw EU United lose here, who I think a lot of people thought were favorites in this contenders for EU. Gamer Origins taking that spot and obviously really taking advantage of it, winning 3-0 and then 1-2-3 end up 4-0ing Singularity here. So let's talk about Misfits versus C9 here. Was this a surprise to you guys? Because it was a surprise to me.
Not even a little bit.
Really?
Misfits winning should be a surprise, but the one thing. We already knew the player was really good, but more so than anything else, it was the Logic show.
Yeah,
Logic was. We saw how unchained he was when supported by a better cast. It was one of the best Tracer performances you could ever expect to see from a team, and also it felt like Tvik had sort of a weight lifted from his shoulders, where he didn't have to necessarily be the guy always doing stuff because of how well Logix was playing. And the fact that Logix was that big of a threat did open up Tvik to do more. So just on DPS play alone, Misfits felt far better than what we've seen from them in recent memory.
Yeah.
Who was C9 had Nevix, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
That team had like three Genji players now, and then they had like Kid playing Tracer, and Kid's not a Tracer player. Like the roster swaps for both teams were just so heavily in favor of Misfits. Like even having Swoosh on Winston's a huge pickup because if you have someone that played Genji, like the way or the amount
someone's knocking my door, it might be the British. Hang on.
The amount that like oh my god, the British are coming. But like the way when you come from a Genji background and then suddenly you're playing Winston, you know what your dive wants, you know what your Tracer wants, like as a Genji how you should play as Winston to like support those two heroes. So like Swoosh making the transition to Winston is like a huge boost, and then like Tvik not really having to play Tracer. He has a phenomenal Tracer, but Logix is like incredible. So like it allows Tvik to do what Tvik does, which is like just hit the hero switch button and then pick whatever he wants and then make it work. And like there's few hero players that can do that right now, and he's definitely one that's best at abusing it. So if you have two really good people playing around him that can like always fill the void no matter what he's playing, it's like very
guys. I am not destroyed. Instead, I have some extra people here. Hello?
Hey, what's up?
They can't hear you.
You can't hear us. Oh
Is this
my
the real
God.
Flame and Shanman?
Yes. Yes.
Wow.
Oh my gosh, we got the whole talent
you got
cast
several
there.
drunk people in the room.
Well,
We'll let
people
Bren in there.
So
Yeah,
that's Brett, of course. This is behind me.
Sideshow and
The one and only left
and
guy.
Gil.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry, everyone.
Are they kidnapping you? I mean, what's the deal, man? But
Again, we can't hear you. I don't know what's going on, but we're just gonna leave you to it.
Here, Brett.
I get to contribute.
Yes.
Hello.
Hey, what's up, man?
Hello. How's it going?
Thanks.
Oh,
Good, man. We're just talking some EU Overwatch contenders right now.
yeah.
What's your
EU's a
take?
terrible region.
Terrible.
Yeah, it's not really. No, it's fantastic. Yeah, it's NA is definitely the superior region as it stands. It used to be a different story, but yeah, not anymore. I'll give you the reasons, but I charge $20 an hour, so
Oh my God.
He's cheap.
Yeah, he's
cheap. Yeah, absolutely.
Cool, man. But Flame, to your...
Here's what comes out. The reason why it's cheap is that it comes down to the part that's all he needs to eat at Wendy's, and Wendy's actually destroys him more than he destroys it. Like, look, we were eating at Wendy's yesterday. It was like this tornado of like mayo and Frosty everywhere. But in the end, he was satisfied.
Right.
I tried to eat at Wendy's. It's horrible. It just went everywhere.
See,
Yeah.
Wendy's is the place to be, man. That's
It-
my
it's not bad,
go-to
yeah,
fast food place. That's for sure.
It's good. Right, I'm gonna leave you to it. We're gonna stop crashing your podcast.
That's all good. We've never been crashed before,
Farewell.
so this is the first time. There's always a first time for anything.
Bye.
Bye, guys. No, but Flame, to your point about Logic's, I felt like it was the same type of thing that we saw with effects, on Envy. Just freeing up Taimu, and then you just kind of feel that weight lifted off of them, and everybody just starts playing amazing. And finally, Tavik, I feel like has a counterpart that can do that for him, and it's great, definitely great to see. Watching Tavik play, he was playing Doomfist at one point, right? Tavik?
And he was just down on them because they were just winning the Tracer duel, and like if you win the Tracer duel that hard, like the game just becomes so easy. Like
yeah, totally. Yeah.
I don't know.
So,
My camera's all messed up now. It's done
it's
forever.
fine.
It took
It's
so long
fine.
to get without the purple lines, but this is what happened when the British invade.
the British invade. Okay, so Misfits looking good. E United. What y'all's take on E United? Just slow start, bad day.
United didn't get to practice for basically a month because of all their players playing in World Cup. If they had players missing over and over again on that team, so
yeah, that's true.
I mean, even though Giganti did look very good, Giganti also got a lot more relevant practice leading up to it, like the Asus ROG tournament and otherwise. Whereas at United, again, they were playing on an old patch for a much longer period of time.
Yeah, it's all about context.
Yeah. Okay.
Team
go ahead.
United died for Team UK. That's the news.
Yeah, tied for UK. Well, UK had a good showing, so maybe it was worth it. Who knows?
Oh, it was definitely worth it.
Yeah. What do you think, guys? Think about the rest of them. Singularity, 1, 2, 3, Gamer Origins, Bazooka Puppies. Anything stand out for you guys?
I thought, well, Gamers Origin, I think, outperformed expectations more so than Bazooka Puppies scoring, but it was really a tough go for Bazooka Puppies. But more so than anything else is that I think Ube and Kenzie are two of your most volatile players, period. And Kenzie basically didn't show up at all that entire series, and Ube was only mildly there. It was when Bazooka Puppies does well, they need Kenzie and Ube. They have very strong games, and it was somewhat anything but.
But they were getting doomfisted, I think, the entire tournament.
That's
and they didn't know how to deal with it.
Wrong, man. Okay.
Well, yeah, but like they didn't. They like that was really. It was again like we're gonna start seeing upsets again, like around that hero. It's just like people not knowing what to do against it. And if you have that one player that can pick it and do well with it, then suddenly like you're gonna start winning games. And that was kind of what happened. I felt like during the Bazooka Puppies match.
Yeah, just all those people that are quick to pick up Doomfist right now, man. You gotta get those wins in now, before people reacting.
On that note, I do want to. I don't want to complain because I've turned over a new leaf. But on the topic of rank decay,
Reformed?
Yeah, I'm reformed. On the topic of rank decay, when you're climbing, it doesn't matter if you lose. Like when you're coming back from your decay because you only lose like 2 points per game, but you gain like 40. So like that's like the best. I've just been playing Doomfist. Like I don't care if I lose 5 points. So like I'm like ruining. I'm not ruining them on purpose, but like if I'm having a bad game on Doomfist, I'm not getting punished for it. So I think that we have to talk to Blizzard about that because I think it's a little weird that I can do that. But
so basically, when you screw up on Doomfist, you want to be tanked to the center of the earth.
But like I'm saying, like the game's giving you 70 points per win, but taking away 2 for a loss. So why wouldn't you play a hero that you're not comfortable on just to see if you can get good at it then?
True.
So like it's a weird
boy.
I'm just throwing that out.
You're encouraging more people.
Are you sure that
I found a flaw? I found a flaw in the system.
There you go.
Okay.
But point is, I've been getting pretty good at it. The hero's good, and like the ult is really strong. You can like land on health. You can like go in, use all your spells, come out, get a health pack with your ult, and then go back and do it again.
That's ridiculous.
So you're losing a bunch of games, but you're not trying to lose.
No, I'm not trying to lose a bunch of games, but I am losing a bunch of games, and I'm only losing like 2 SR per game. So it's like,
there's no risk.
But remember, if you get teamed up with Flame, you're gonna lose like 40 SR games.
I think I'm done for the season. I've been chilling.
Dude, get Flame on your friends list, and then make sure when he's in queue, you're not in queue.
Well, that only works until you get back
your
to your
SR
number.
is going to get hit by the fence.
No. I'm done. I climbed. Like once you climb, it stops working. But like that whole gap between like 3,000 and 4,000, where you're like trying to get back through Diamond, then you can just do it.
Okay. Well, there's definitely some Season 6 stuff that we didn't talk about that was, I guess, announced in the developer update an hour or two ago before I set in stone these notes. So maybe we'll talk about it in Q&A here. But let's talk about Apex Season 4 real quick before we do. And it's in full swing. Been a few matches already. I think the most notable one to talk about is just the Lunatic High one, given that they're defending champs and obviously Team Soul and everything with them. And they ended up playing MVP Space. They ended up losing to MVP 3-2 in a really, really tight series. So there are some changes there. Litajon, like you mentioned before, Flame back on Lunatic High. Guido and who are you on the bench right now. What'd you see here? I mean, is it Lunatic High getting off to a slow start like they always do, or is a little bit more to it? And you were alluding to just maybe a little bit more too, just in terms of just compositions and stuff.
My baseline initial thoughts, I mean, obviously, like anything, there's going to be multiple factors, but MVP Space came out with some really good compositions for this meta, particularly the Pharah Doomfist setups were really good. Like, those were excellent to watch, and there's multiple reasons why that's going to be effective, not the least of which is that if you're looking to the sky to deal with the Pharah, you're not looking for the Doomfist and vice versa. It's a very powerful double threat.
Yeah.
I mean, it was like shades of Season 1, because I remember Season 1, there was like this match on King's Row. I think it was Old Rogue. I want to say it was Old Rogue or whatever team they were, Misfits, whatever team Tivik was on, where like they played King's Row, and it was Tajan and Eska versus like Tivik's Pharah, and they couldn't. Eska was like playing Mei, so it made Tajan play McCree, and then Tajan couldn't kill Tivik's Pharah, and like it wound up in this spot where Tivik's Pharah just shit on the entirety of Lunatic High on King's Row because they could not kill it. And it was the same thing here, because like now you have Eska playing Sombra, so then Tajan's back on Hitscan, and he's the only one that can kill this Pharah. He doesn't have that like Taimu good aim, like that's just going to take the Pharah out of the sky. So like the team just got abused by the fact that they could not kill the Pharah, and then you had this like one fact was just one-shotting everybody to the point where I am sure like Jaehong and Toby were getting tilted, because Toby got deleted at least like once every other fight. It was actually insane.
Well, the other thing too is I'm not even convinced Soldier is like the best hero to be running in a lot of situations against Doomfist, where you're not getting great sight lines, and a Doomfist is like in your face. So to begin with, you're running a Soldier versus a Pharah, and it's not the absolute best Soldier you could be running against the Pharah. And then anytime the Soldier like runs to the Doomfist, he just gets immediately wrecked.
But next week, Zumba can just go up there and give him the little magic missiles, and bam.
Magic missile.
Magic missiles.
Can we get Wizard Diva then? Magic missiles. And then one of her emotes is just rolling a 20-sided die. Like
she comes out of her neck with a hat on.
I rolled.
She's already got her divine shield going. I know exactly right. That's so hilarious. Okay, so it was just. I mean, what you're saying is it's basically roster / just play there, right? I mean,
it's
versus the
it's
MVP
Doomfist.
comp too.
Yeah, it's
MVP comp was
Doomfist
great
being
too.
Doomfist, and then it's like a team that doesn't know how to play against Doomfist, and then it's like that. I mean, that's what it came down to at the end of the day.
Yeah,
I think that they tilted the shit out of the supports though, and I don't think the supports on Lunatic High have tilted that hard before. Like you could feel it, and like being able to do that, I think catching them off guard was really, like it was just good.
We'll definitely see how they recover. They usually react pretty quickly, Lunatic High, so wouldn't be surprised this next week or 2 weeks or however. I think it's like a week, right, until their next match. It should be one that's practicing Doomfist play and countering Doomfist. Okay, well, let's move on to some Q&A. We actually don't have any questions email-wise. So again, like, go ahead and email those for next week if you do have any questions for us to the overview at ChanManV.tv. But anybody in the Twitch chat have any questions, go ahead and write those out. In the meantime, let's talk about some of the Season 6 competitive changes that were talked about in the developers update. So first off, the seasons will now be 2 months long instead of 3 months long. So okay, that's a pretty big change. I mean, the fact that it's shorter. Do you guys like that, or do you think?
I think it's good, and actually, I mean, I was in the minority on this, but I actually think one of the bigger mistakes that was done, and it was done due to feedback, and it was being responsive to feedback, but I actually did like it back when seasons were just 1 month long and back in the beta. Because if nothing else, then you're encouraging people to play every month. 3 month seasons have definitely been way too long because you get this period where you don't have people trying for a long period of time. And then you finally hit the very last week. And then you have situations where you have Reinforced scrambling to go to a LAN cafe here in Colorado. They like grind this shit up. So
and I played with him today like twice. We won. I think we won both games, but it was, again, he was like sitting there doing it.
But the point is, you want to encourage people to have that urgency to play ladder more often than at the final week of a 3 month season. So right. I think the 2 month change is good. I would actually be in favor of doing a month and a half, but 2 months, step in the right direction.
Yeah. And because of the shorter, oh wait, Flame, you have something?
Oh no, I was gonna say like the way it worked, or the way that ranked was, is like you just they fixed two things, right? Like it's not just the 2 months, it's the 2 months plus the better decay. Like you only decay 25 now, and you only have to play 5 games a week, which is like a super huge buff to that because like the biggest problem with the 3 month thing was you didn't even really want to play your placements if you were someone that couldn't commit. Because if you played your placements, then you started decaying if you couldn't play. And like as someone who spent the entire month of July traveling, you come back and you're like, all right, well, now I'm diamond. I probably shouldn't have even played my placements or whatever. So I think that gets rid of that. The 5 games is definitely a huge upgrade. I mean, it doesn't feel huge, but not having to play those extra 2 games, I think, is just a lot of leeway. And then only decaying 25 after that instead of 50 is massive. So I think that they're just trying to get people to play more and not care so much about decay or be less afraid about it. And then also, like as ZP said, you don't really want to be in a situation where all that matters is that last week. You want people to be like, oh shit, I only have like 6 weeks to get my SR up. Because I mean, you can have those weeks where you drop 300 and then the next week you only gain 200. So they just want people playing more. And I think that this is a good way to do it.
All right, one of the biggest things right here. Wait for it, guys. Right here. Placement matches shall now lead to more accurate skill ratings and no more getting ranked lower than last season. Which thank God they've changed that, because I just never understood. Well, I mean, I understood their thinking and their logic behind it. I just didn't understand why they did it, though. It's just like, I mean, people feel bad, man, when they start lower than they did.
Well, why are you entitled to be at the same rank? I mean, here's the problem. Why are you even having placements to begin with? Because the entire point for placements is that
no. Okay. So
they should be something that they place higher or lower. But the way you said that was just like the air of the time. It was like, I deserve to be at the exact same rank as last season.
What I mean is that they were purposely putting us lower. Yes. Than we were the previous season. That's what I was getting at. Not so much. I mean, if you lose all your placement matches,
everyone knew that
to be lower.
Everyone knew that, right?
Yeah, but it didn't matter if everybody knew that. It still feels bad. You know what I mean? And there were so many complaints about it, even on my other show, Overwatch.
Oh, I think that their next step for season 7 is going to be upping that SR number, because, like, I don't know. I think that the gap between like 4,000 and 4,400 is like massive in terms of skill.
Mm-hmm.
So,
yes,
like, which is like something that's like much bigger. Like that gap. And like honestly, if you start going into masters, it feels like gold sometimes, and like it's really bizarre. Really? Dude, there's like some like I've played in gold games before. Like I've watched streams of people in gold games, and like you get some games in masters, it's like Bastion, Junkrat, Symmetra offense, and you're like, okay, I don't understand what's happening.
No tanks,
no tanks, no healers, like just like bots just coming out of spawn and dying, and like I don't know how it happens, but it does happen, and like I think that's. Like I think that number needs to be bigger. I think like the 5,000 needs to be like 6 or 7, and like there needs to be like a more distinct gap between, like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
There should be like gates. There should be like you have to win 5 games in a row to break from 3,000, like from 39.99 to 4,000 or something. Like some sort of
boss
like
at every
like a final boss at every 500 or something.
Gosh,
like the gatekeeper.
I'd hate that, dude. That would suck.
One thing I want to just acknowledge real quick. That's a great question from Legit RC in chat that I want to get to when we're done with this. So throw that at me after.
Let's see. Any of the other things here. Okay, control maps will now be best of 3 versus best of 5. So
that's just parity.
Good.
Yeah. I think it's better for tournaments and like timing and spectators and stuff.
Well, well, control is the biggest wild card in tournament timing, especially when you would run like open bracket tournaments way back in the way. But it still rears its head now when how people are playing, where there's a big time gap between 3 out of 5, where it goes to 5 and it's really close back and forth, to a 3-0 stomp. So this is just good for consistency in tournaments, period.
Well, the one thing I don't like about it is I think they're going to have to make the maps a little bit longer, because the one thing that was good about best of 5, and like it's kind of a shame that there's not like a best of 6 technically, you know, because I think that like being able to see, like one thing that I really don't like, or that I wish existed in Overwatch, was like in TF2 you would play the same map 3 times, and then this way, like as you're going through, the teams start adapting their strategies because they know what the team ran in the previous round. So like if you play Ilios well and then you lose it, if you got Ilios well again, you probably wouldn't lose as hard because you'd know what they were going to do, and like you could kind of counter strat it in your head. Yeah. So like there was like a meta that evolved there, and like it's something that doesn't exist in this game because that's not like how the game is played. Like we don't have the stopwatch best of 3 per map stuff, but like it did exist on WELL where like a team would run Pharah the first round and then maybe they wouldn't run it the second round because it got dumpstered, and then like that was cool to watch, and I think that was like the depth of that game mode. So I do think that there should be I think the round should be longer or something.
I wouldn't disagree with that. And I mean, it is a trade-off, right? Let's put it this way. If you could guarantee that every control would go to 5 and it would have cool adaptations, I'd probably be more against it or changing it. I just think the problem is, and this is why you've seen tournaments change and otherwise, that it's just really variable between your stomps and your closer games on control, and just the time difference alone sort of necessitated that being standardized a bit. But I do agree. It was really cool when you would see a team maybe lose the first 2 rounds and then go download complete and then just run the table and reverse sweep. When that happened, it was amazing. And it is a little bit sad that that's going away.
Yeah. Okay, last bit is just for folks that are, obviously trying to farm for your golden guns. Because the seasons are shorter, there's going to be more competitive points per win, but you're going to get less of a final reward at the end of the season just because it's shorter. So try to get as many wins as you can during each month. You're going to actually end up better than before, versus just trying to get that final tier, huge reward at the end of the season. But I think that's going to be it for the season 6 one. So that question, let's go into Q&A. You said that there was a good question in chat. Did you forget it already or no?
No, legit RC.
Yeah, there he is. Let's see. Oh, you're gonna have to find it. Let me see.
I mean, I can read off the question.
Then. Yeah, so it's for ZP, and it says, wait, shoot, it scrolled off for me. You read it. Gosh, it scrolled off my.
What's the most notable change in your casting style now compared to what do you look to improve on?
All right, goddamn. Legit RC asks, I have a question for you.
He said how what? He messed up his English.
What's the most noticeable change in your casting style now compared to when you were doing the old Ghosted Weeklies, and how? No, it's scrolling.
Exactly.
Now you know.
How do you want to improve?
Yeah, ZP. Good thing you fixed it.
Whatever.
Good
you know
job.
what? The question is out there. So I would say it's multiple different things, right? But I would say the biggest note for casting is that vocals are very important in casting. You want to have consistent flow without intermittent stops and otherwise. And you also want to vary when you're really, really high and crazy stuff is happening versus, and now we look back a little bit and here's what's happening. I would say my early casting was not anywhere near as fluid as it is today in terms of just vocally going from word to word. And I had a tendency to stay really, really on the high side for the most part. And there's still certain matches nowadays where arguably I stay a little bit too hypey versus balancing it out, but it was a much bigger issue earlier. The other thing that I've gotten a lot better at broadcasting wise, when I compare my older cast to now, is framing of the game. I take it very seriously, the give status updates of this is this team, this is what they're looking to do, this is the state they're in now. I always want to make sure that people know the stakes going into a fight. And the reason is that if the stakes are defied, that makes it a really, really big deal. For example, if you have a case where one team has 5 ultimates, the other team only has a pulse bomb, I want to let you know that that team is going to have a very good chance of winning that fight and explain why. The reason is because if the other team is somehow able to defy those expectations and bring it back, that's something that I can genuinely get excited about. And then you understand why I'm excited over it, because a team just defied the odds. And I mean, I could go on forever about that, but
sure.
those are the really big points.
Okay. Let's see. Fatcho asks, is Immortals Contender success dependent on agilities getting good at Doomfist?
Maybe.
Possibly, yeah. I mean, that could very well be. I mean,
their supports had some weird decision making. I thought Verbo. I mean, I hate saying that players have bad days because it's like rude, but they were not playing up to the par that we wanted, and I don't think we saw the same Grim Reality Tracer that we saw during Contender Season 0. Mm-hmm. But again, a lot of that is effects on the Doomfist.
Also, I don't want to think people think that I'm ignoring this one, but when it comes to questions on like others or stuff that's behind the scenes, just know that like all casters do try and help each other out. And when it comes to who does an event or whatnot, there's like a lot of things that go into it, and I hardly know everything that it's about it either. So I can't comment on that really.
Okay, Gunsem asks, do you think Bastion needs a buff? We haven't seen a Bastion. Well, it wasn't that long ago Bastion got some changes.
The hero's good. It's just Sombra's better. Like that's like the thing is like.
Yeah, that's a good point.
The hero actually just gets dumpstered by Sombra right now, and like Sombra's kind of getting
a lot of people.
Yeah, but like specifically those Bastion comps, because like if you like just take Bastion's not someone that bursts you. Like you take like normal damage or whatever. So like you don't die, you shouldn't like instantly die to a Bastion unless you like stand in front of it, but you can just like take a little bit and pick up a health pack. But then generally you're running like Reinhardt and Zarya and stuff, and then all of that gets EMP and it just becomes like the most useless comp ever.
Yeah.
So like I don't think Bastion's bad. It's just like he has mobility issues obviously, and then there's a lot of heroes that are currently picked normally that like do really well against somebody like Tracer too. It's just hard.
Well, the other thing about Bastion too is that he's a hero that it's very difficult to buff to be viable in really high end play, because I might be wrong on this, something I heard about, but I'm pretty sure he still has a relatively good win rate at gold and below. So you do run into issues with Bastion where if you buff him to be really good for the competitive end, he's just going to be just absolutely rolling the lower end of Overwatch competitive play, which is not a scenario Blizzard wants.
That said, I think
hero the balance.
I don't think you get punched out of turret form. Just FYI. I think like if you just run a Bastion into a Doomfist,
so he can't run into the wall then, right? He's just
no. I don't think you can punch a Doomfist or punch a Bastion into a wall. I'm pretty sure you can't.
Okay.
So that's just something to keep in mind.
He's an easy target though. So
yeah. I mean, at that point running Bastion, but it's like Doomfist kind of loses his spunk against that hero. So it's
okay. Let's see. Okay, speculation mode. Core. This is talking about Overwatch League. People are talking about how Huck may be going for Birdring for the Boston team. Do you think this will ever happen?
What do you mean ever? Like why? Like I mean, I'm sure it could.
Yeah,
like,
obviously it could happen, but do you think this will happen? I guess maybe rephrasing it.
I've heard rather definitively where Birdring is going, and that's why I'm meant like I can't say where. Like I don't even want to speculate on the risk of like screwing something up. So nope, can't talk.
So
well, he's going somewhere. So
yeah, he's definitely going somewhere.
He's going somewhere. Yes, that is accurate.
At least we know that, which is not a surprise, given the Birdring is amazing at Tracer.
He's good.
Let's see. Any other questions? Okay, I don't think there's any others. Again, if you guys have anything for us, you can always just email that. Email again at theoverview@ChanManV.tv, and we'll read them out next week. But that's going to be it, guys. One quick reminder before we do some shout-outs that the show, you can find the audio versions on iTunes. If you like to listen to your iPad or iPhone while you're working out or on the way to work, you can find us there, as well as Google Play if you have an Android phone, as well as on SoundCloud, soundcloud.com/ChanManV. So check that out if you can. And if you enjoy the show, leave a rating for us, because it helps in terms of SEO on a lot of these podcasts, just search directories and things like that. But why don't we do some shout outs, wrap it up. Man, we got through all this news in an hour. Man, we're getting good at this, an hour and a half. So Flame, you want to do some shout outs before we take off?
Yeah, I mean, shout out to Blizzard. I had a really good month of World Cup.
Oh yeah.
Shout out to I guess my community for sticking with me even though I wasn't home. Like that was cool. Yeah, I mean, I have a lot going on right now, and like I'm still trying to like figure out my place in the whole owl ecosystem, but I'll figure it out soon, I think.
Yeah, I think
so shout out to everybody that got me here and like has supported me to get to this point.
Yeah, man, it was great seeing you on at World Cup, man. Yeah, getting a chance to see you on the desk. You know, it was a while since before World Cup. When was it? Was it MLG? No, oh my gosh, it's like that's hard to imagine. That's crazy. So did a great job on the desk, and of course ZP is all. I mean, ZP always do well too, but it was especially nice getting a chance to see you on there. Did you have a lot of fun, like just traveling?
I mean, everyone was just thinking. I mean, like so, like I had this conversation, but like it's super warming to like work with people that are like your age, man. Like you take it for granted. I think some people when they get out of college and they join like startups and everyone's like their age. Yeah. But I've been working with people that are in like their 40s and 50s.
Oh, that sucks.
And suddenly I'm with like everybody that's like in their like late 20s and early 30s and like super chill and like down to help and like just having like Golden Boy, Zoe, Rachel, Jamerson like just all there with you all the time is like super like it's like it feels good, you know, like.
Well, they're awesome people too.
So. Like, don't worry, we're all going to get old soon enough. Soon we will be the 50.
I am a child and I will never grow up.
Soon I will be the 50.
We're going to be telling people to get off our lawns. Like, hey, we're going to be able to afford lawns. Exactly. And the reason why you're able to afford a lawn is to tell kids to get the hell off.
I love the young people.
That's where we're going.
Yeah, man, you're going to have that skin too, man. Be flipping burgers while you're doing it too.
No, I mean it's just good. It was like I loved every part of it. Everyone, like people were complaining in China that it was like a bad experience, but like I was just happy to be in China. You know, like I don't care that the heat's broken or that the bus is taking us to the wrong place. Like I'm just in China, man. Like. And
you
like,
never left China, actually.
Yeah, Australia was so sick, man. Like Australia was like unreal, like how crazy. Like that was like the first time I felt like you compare it to Vegas. There was obviously not a lot of spectators at E-League. Like just being in that crowd on the desk, like just seeing all these like people that they weren't even just hyped for Australia. They were just hyped for good Overwatch.
Yeah,
and it's like a taste of like what's possible. You know, like if you do get an entire region to be happy about something or just like show up to something. Like when you were in China, literally, I mean, I'm not to like knock on China, but when China was done playing, the Chinese fans would like leave. When like Australia was done playing, the Australian fans like stayed and they watched and they cheered for teams that weren't theirs, and like it was sick. And like,
but did they have a flag? Did they have a guy running across the stage with a flag?
I will say
we didn't have a stage. The setup was completely different. We had like we had really good seating in Australia. Like there was like everyone could see everything.
Yeah.
But
it's bigger.
No, there was no Captain Planet running around with his blue tunic or whatever that was.
Obviously, fan bases are going to differ, but I do think it helps in keeping your fans there the entire time when you're putting them in a casino in like super comfortable seating with really good concessions and all the rest. So
Vegas,
there was something there that helped the Australian crowd stick around.
Yeah, that's true, I guess.
All right, well, yeah, definitely best of luck to you, man. Hopefully you will be part of Overwatch League in some capacity, whether it's talent or on a team. Definitely looking forward to seeing that happen. ZP, how about you? Shout-outs.
Similar shout-outs. I mean, doing World Cup over... Wait, am I still here?
Yeah, you're here.
Okay. My Twitch just started buffering. I thought everything went away, but no. I mean, of course, big shout outs to Blizzard for World Cup over the summer. It was super fun to be a part of it. Some great events. Both I was in Sydney and Santa Monica. Both were freaking amazing. And shout outs to everyone working on Contenders. A lot of great Overwatch to fill the void between now and World Cup finals and whenever Overwatch League gets started out. It's a really good time for Overwatch. So, and of course, shout out to the fans for supporting this and making the events as good as they have been.
Yeah, like you said, man, this is definitely a great summer. End of summer is always, I mean, last year was amazing.
This summer never ends.
I know, this summer.
I honestly,
it's like a slogan,
like
man.
My birthday feels like it was like a year ago. Like July was it went by fast. Like every week went by fast, but the entire month went by so slow. It's like, oh, we're still traveling. Like we're still traveling, but like every time you're at the event, you get to that last day and you're like, oh my god, it's gone. But then you have another one. It was like I can't believe it's not September yet.
Like perception of time definitely changes when you're doing shit. There is this sort of idea that people lose track of time when, you know, for example, you're stuck in an office doing the same thing week after week. That's where you get to the moment of, oh my God, 8 months of the year have already passed. But when you're constantly changing scenarios, I think your brain actually does process time somewhat slower. So yeah, when you're doing cool stuff all summer long, it feels like it's been a longer summer.
Yeah, definitely. Well, I'll wrap things up by just thanking you guys for doing the show with me today, and hopefully Ben will be back next week because we missed him today. But thanks all you guys for watching too. I guess from my standpoint, I do have some bit of news in terms of PAX West. We're going to be doing Streamer Showdown out in PAX West in Seattle. So if you guys are going to be there, definitely look on the schedule and you'll see Streamer Showdown twice. We're going to be doing a general gaming one, and then we're going to be doing an Overwatch one during the esports segments on the Twitch stage. So look for us there. Come say hi if you're around, and hopefully some more news of Streamer Showdown soon. But you can find this podcast and the VODs and everything on youtube.com/ChanManV. You can follow us on Twitter, the OverView GG, and again, you can find us on iTunes, SoundCloud, and Google Play. So that's going to be it, guys, for this week and the overview. For Flame, ZP, and myself, ChanManV. We'll see you next week.